I helped my neighbor rebuild after a house fire. Months later, he filed a complaint that my tree was a hazard, forcing me to cut it down. Nature gives. Nature takes, he said coldly. The next morning, I delivered a folder to the city planning office that proved his insurance claim wasn't just inflated, it was fabricated. I've lived on this street in Eugene, Oregon for over 25 years. It's not flashy. Middle-class, quiet, mostly older folks. People wave from their driveways and talk about lawn fertilizer. That kind of place. My wife passed 5 years ago. Kids are grown. I keep to myself. I take care of the house. Every week, I clean the gutters, edge the lawn, trim the hedges. I try to keep the place how she liked it. The maple tree in the front yard was her favorite. It gave shade to the living room all summer. My daughter learned to climb on it. We buried our old dog under it in '09. It's not just a tree to me. So when Bruce moved in next door, I tried to be polite. He was a single guy, late 40s, always on his Bluetooth headset. Barely said hello. Liked to remind people he was a consultant. Never said for what. He'd mow his lawn with his shirt off. Made his own patio with those cheap interlocking bricks from Home Depot and bragged about it at the mailbox. Still, I figured he was harmless. Then the fire happened. August 17th. A dry, windy night. I heard the sirens first. Saw the glow out my bedroom window. His house was lit up, smoke pouring out the upstairs windows. I ran outside barefoot. The firefighters got it under control fast, but there was real damage. Mostly upstairs. The attic was gone. Roof half collapsed. But I walked through it with him the next day. The downstairs was still intact. Some smoke smell, yes. But not burned. He looked pale. Shaken. And honestly, I felt for him. I told him he could use my power for a bit. Let him store 6 or 7 big plastic tubs in my garage. Helped him haul furniture and toss the wet drywall from the upstairs. Even helped tarp the roof until his contractor showed up. He didn't say much, but he gave me a 6-pack of IPA and said, "Appreciate it." A few weeks later, big crews started showing up. Not just fire repairs. This was a full-on rebuild. He had permits up on the window for everything. Electrical, framing, foundation, even a garage extension. I figured maybe the insurance gave him a solid payout. I didn't question it. 6 months go by. His place is spotless. New siding, full landscaping, new mailbox. Like something out of a catalog. Then I get a letter from the city. Hazard complaint. About my maple tree. I thought it was a mistake. The letter said the tree was leaning toward the adjacent rebuilt structure and posed a future liability. It had photos. A full statement from a private tree assessor. One I didn't hire. Turns out Bruce filed the report. I called him. No answer. I walked over. He stood on the porch, arms crossed. I asked him, "Why'd you report my tree?" He said, "It's dangerous. I'm protecting my investment." I said, "It's been here for 30 years. It's healthy." And that's when he said it. Nature gives. Nature takes. Then he turned and walked inside. It was a punch to the gut. I had helped this man rebuild his life. And now he was costing me a peace of mind. But what really set something off in me was a memory. From back in August. 2 days after the fire, I was bringing him a coffee. He was on speakerphone with someone, maybe his contractor or someone from insurance. He said, "If they ask, stick to the story about the old wiring. And don't mention the garage." Back then, I didn't think much of it. But now, it hit different. I had been in that house. I knew the garage didn't get touched. And the kitchen? He claimed total smoke loss. But I helped move boxes out of that kitchen. Nothing was even charred. So, I started looking into it. I called a friend of mine who used to work in insurance claims for State Farm. Told him I had a weird feeling. He said if it smelled fishy, I should check the public records. Insurance payouts, permit filings, anything. So, I did. City Hall still has physical copies if you ask. I took half a day off work and went down there. Friendly woman at the counter helped me pull Bruce's permit stack. There were about a dozen. Some were legit: roof repair, drywall, plumbing. but others were strange. One was a demolition permit for the garage. It said fire damage beyond repair. But that wasn't true. I saw that garage 2 days after the fire. It wasn't even touched. Another permit said complete interior smoke and water damage for the downstairs. But I'd walked those rooms with him. They were musty, but nothing close to destroyed. I took copies of everything. Every permit. Every note. Every drawing. I even went home and printed photos I'd taken the day of the fire. I had a few because I texted my daughter that night. House next door just caught fire. Look. They clearly showed the garage untouched. Even showed the kitchen window open. No smoke coming out. The next morning, I put everything in a brown folder and brought it back to City Hall. I handed it to the planning officer and said, "I think my neighbor committed insurance fraud." And that's when things really started. The city clerk didn't say much when I handed her the folder. Just flipped through a few pages, glanced at the photos, and said someone from the office would be in touch. I didn't expect much. Maybe a note in his file, a small fine. I didn't think it would explode the way it did. 3 days later, a black SUV parked in front of Bruce's house. 2 men in suits stepped out. I watched from my living room window. They went up the steps, knocked. Bruce answered. The conversation didn't last long. 20 minutes later, they were walking the outside of the property, pointing, taking pictures. The next day, he was served. I saw it happen. A man in a dark jacket handed him a thick envelope. Bruce stood there for a long time holding it, like he didn't know whether to open it or set it on fire. That night, his porch light stayed off. No music. No Bluetooth calls. Nothing. Just silence. Then something weird happened. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of rustling outside. I looked out the window and saw Bruce standing in my yard. Just standing there, near the hole where my tree used to be. He wasn't doing anything. Just staring at the ground. I almost went out to say something. But then he walked away. No lights on. Just disappeared into the dark. The next morning, there was a dead squirrel left on my welcome mat. I don't know if it was him. Could have been anything. But it felt like a message. A few days later, I got a letter. Not from Bruce. From his lawyer. It accused me of defamation. Said I made malicious and unfounded claims about my neighbor's property and repairs. Said I interfered with a private insurance agreement and that Bruce was considering a civil case for emotional distress. It was insane. I called the number listed for the attorney. Got a receptionist. Left a message. No call back. But I wasn't scared. Because 2 days after that, someone else called me. It was an investigator with the Oregon Division of Financial Regulation. He thanked me for the information. Said it had opened a larger inquiry. Then he asked me one question that stuck with me. Did your neighbor ever mention starting the fire himself? I froze. Because, yeah, there was one time. One comment. The day we were hauling out burned insulation, he was sweating like hell, and he mumbled something. I didn't catch it all, but it sounded like, should have started in the garage. Back then I thought maybe I misheard. Thought maybe he was just rambling. Now I wasn't so sure. They asked if I'd give a formal statement. I said yes. I went downtown and sat in a small room with a plain desk and a guy in a button-up shirt who didn't smile once. I told him everything. Every conversation I remembered, every detail from the day of the fire, every odd thing Bruce ever said. It took 2 hours. When I left, he said, "You did the right thing." I wanted to believe him. But that night, my mailbox was smashed in. Just destroyed. Bent like a soda can. I reported it. Police came, filed a report. Said there wasn't much they could do without a witness. Bruce never looked at me after that. Wouldn't even glance in my direction. But every time I left the house, I felt like he was watching. One night, I caught a reflection in my truck window. His curtain moved. He was still there. Still quiet. Still dangerous. And then came the biggest twist of all. One morning, I came out to grab the paper. And Bruce's house? Empty. No lights. No car. The blinds were gone. I walked over. There was a for sale sign in the yard. No listing online. No open house. Just a number to call. I called it. Some woman answered. Said the house was being sold off-market. Discreetly, I asked if Bruce still owned it. She paused, then said, "Not anymore." I didn't hear or see Bruce for weeks after that. His house sat empty. No moving truck ever came.
No lights. No noise.
But every so often, I'd see a car parked a few blocks down, engine running, a man in the driver's seat. Watching. Then gone. I figured the investigation scared him off. Maybe he knew charges were coming. Maybe he sold the house fast to cut ties. But part of me didn't believe he left on his own. A month later, I got confirmation. I was in line at the DMV, updating my truck registration. Boring stuff. A guy in front of me, older, gray beard, badge clipped to his belt, turns around and says, "Hey, you're the guy who gave us the folder, right?" I nodded. He introduced himself. Fraud investigator. Said they couldn't give me full details, but Bruce was in custody. Caught trying to cross into Canada. Fake name, fake documents. There was more than just fire fraud. Bank stuff. Identity stuff. He called it deep water. I couldn't believe it. That guy who stood on my lawn and said, "Nature gives. Nature takes." He was running a full con. And he had almost gotten away with it. But it wasn't over. 2 weeks later, I get a visit from a woman I'd never seen before. She was mid-30s, sharp voice, nervous eyes. Knocked on my door just before dusk. "Are you the neighbor who turned Bruce in?" I hesitated. "Who's asking?" She stepped back a little, looked around. "I'm his sister." That threw me. She wasn't angry. She looked tired. Said she'd been trying to track him down for years. He'd burned through 3 states, faked a car accident in Utah, drained their father's retirement, and vanished after that. "He told people I was dead," she said. I let her sit on the porch. She didn't want water, didn't want to come inside. She just wanted to know how long he'd been here, what he'd told people, what lies he'd built this time. I gave her what I could. She nodded quietly, then pulled something out of her coat pocket. A photograph. It was Bruce, maybe 15 years younger, with a little boy sitting on his shoulders. The kid had the same sharp eyes.
"He has a son," she said.
"In Florida. Kid doesn't know him." She didn't stay long. When she stood up to leave, she said something I haven't been able to forget. He always finds a new place. Until someone sees too much. She didn't mean it as a threat. But it didn't feel like a warning either. It felt like a promise. I planted a new tree last month. Same spot. Smaller, obviously. It'll take years to grow. Sometimes I catch myself standing out there, hands in my pockets, just waiting. Not for the tree. For the feeling that used to come with it. But it's not the same. And maybe it never will be. Because once you've seen what someone's really capable of, not just what they did to you, but what they were willing to do to everyone else, you stop believing certain things are just accidents. And now, every time the wind picks up, I wonder who's watching. Or waiting. Or already here. After his sister left, I didn't sleep much. I kept going over everything she said. The lies, the trail of damage, the people he left behind. It made me realize I had only seen the edge of the story. The part that touched my street, my tree, my life. But there were probably a dozen other people like me, each thinking they were the only one. A week later, I got a letter from the Oregon Department of Justice. Not an email, a real, sealed envelope. It said I might be contacted to testify. That Bruce's case was expanding into multiple states, possibly even federal. They thanked me for coming forward. Called me a primary civilian witness. I didn't know what to make of it. I wasn't looking to be part of some bigger case. I just wanted to protect what was mine. But now my name was in a file. My words were in an affidavit. I was part of something much bigger than a neighbor dispute. Then one night, just past 11 p.m., my power went out. It was only my house. Every other window on the block was lit up. I went out back and found the breaker flipped. No signs of damage. No blown fuses. Just flipped. It could have been nothing. A coincidence. But I reported it anyway. A local cop came by, took notes. Said they'd keep an eye out. He was polite, but I could tell he thought I was being paranoid. Still, that night I slept in the chair by the front window, shotgun across my lap. Because Bruce may have been locked up or on the run. But someone still knew I was the one who exposed him. And whoever it was, they hadn't let it go. 2 days after the power incident, I got a call from a block number. I don't usually answer those, but something in my gut told me to pick up. There was silence at first. Then a voice, low, quiet, familiar. "You think this is over?" I didn't say anything. They don't even know what they're looking at. Then it clicked. It was Bruce. I hung up. Immediately. Called the investigator from the DOJ, told him everything. He asked if I'd recorded it. I hadn't. He said they'd look into it, trace the call, said it might have come from a prepaid burner. But the way he said it, I knew they didn't expect much. A few days later, I got a visit from 2 federal agents. They asked if Bruce had ever left anything on my property, tools, electronics, paperwork. They were calm, but they looked through everything. My garage, my shed, even under the crawl space. That's when they found it. Wedged behind an old paint can in the back of the garage was a small black notebook. It wasn't mine. I hadn't seen it before. Inside were sketches, floor plans, electrical layouts, scribbled notes with dates and figures. Some of the handwriting was just numbers. Others said things like, "Light it from inside and stay off cameras." They bagged it, tagged it, and left. Later that night, I sat on the porch with my dog, just staring across the street. His house, now empty, still for sale, looked darker than usual. Like it knew it was part of something. Like it remembered more than I did. And that's when I realized, maybe Bruce hadn't come back at all. Maybe someone else had been here the whole time. A week later, a car pulled into Bruce's old driveway. It wasn't a moving truck or a realtor. It was an old gray Honda with out-of-state plates. The driver sat in the car for a long time before getting out. Thin guy, maybe early 30s, shaggy beard, heavy jacket despite the heat. He walked around the house once slow, like he was checking for something. Then he rang my doorbell. I didn't answer at first. Just watched through the peephole. He didn't knock again.
Just waited.
After a minute, he pulled out an envelope and slid it under my door. Then walked off without saying a word. I waited until he was gone before I opened it. Inside were 5 Polaroids. Old ones. Yellowed edges. All of them showed Bruce. In different places. A gas station. A storage unit. One looked like a marina. In each one, he was with someone different, sometimes laughing, sometimes arguing, once with what looked like a badge clipped to his belt. There was no note. No name. Just the photos. I called the investigator again, explained what happened. He asked if I'd kept the envelope. I had. He told me to put it somewhere safe and not to share it. Said it could be related to ongoing leads. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the man in the gray Honda wasn't a stranger. Something about his eyes. The way he moved. So I went back through my old messages. Photos. Security footage. And there it was. One of my outdoor cameras from the night of the fire. Blurry, dark, but clear enough. That same man, same jacket, same hair, standing across the street, watching Bruce's house burn. I gave that footage to the DOJ. They thanked me. Said it complicated things. But they didn't explain how. They never do. Since then, nobody's moved into Bruce's old place. It's still empty, windows dark, mailbox taped shut. The for sale sign rotted out and fell over in the wind. People avoid it. Even delivery guys walk around it like it's bad luck. Sometimes I sit on my porch at night, coffee in hand, staring at that house. I try to make sense of how close I was to something so twisted. I used to think it was just bad luck getting a neighbor like him. But the more I learn, the less it feels random. The man in the gray Honda hasn't come back. But the memory of his face lingers. Just like the sound of Bruce's voice through the phone that night. Some nights I hear footsteps outside. Could be nothing. Could be something. But I keep my porch light off now. I don't want them to know I'm still watching, too. Because whatever started that night in August, I don't think it's really over. Not yet.